Good afternoon from Brussels. And indeed, the leaders are still meeting and they've been discussing the current situation. And of course, we are all worried. And this is one thing we don't want to see, that the current confrontation and provocation, the current crisis actually ends up in an armed confrontation and in a war. And that's why all our efforts and all our engagement and messaging to Russia is, no, we will not allow this to go to a conflict. We still need to explore the diplomatic way, the engagement. And if the diplomacy fails, or if Russia makes the diplomacy fail, there will be consequences, and the consequences will be hard, and they will be coming very, very fast. But this is the worst crisis since the end of Cold War in Europe, and all of us are interested in seeing the escalation and not the escalation. But of course, it's a choice that Russia needs.
How do you reach that de-escalation, though? Because in the end, many would suggest what Moscow is calling for, which is essentially to stop the expansion of NATO and even the drawdown of some NATO troops in countries that border Russia, is simply not going to happen. So how do you get to a path of de-escalation?
Well, Russia needs to understand that in Europe in 21st century, you cannot impose your will on the choices of others. What Russia essentially wants us to do is to dictate us what we or what Ukrainians have to do in terms of organizing ourselves when it comes to foreign policy alliances or security arrangements. This is unacceptable. This goes against not only against the logic, but it goes against internationally established principles to which Russia subscribes to. So our message is we need to engage. Okay, you have worries, you have concerns, so let's sit down behind the negotiating table, stop this exchange of letters, but start to engage and address the problems and the grievances you have in a civilized manner, in a European way, behind the negotiating table, most preferably within the established international platforms. We have Organization for Cooperation and Security in Europe, but Russia is ignoring it deliberately. They want to deal separately with the US, separately with the NATO. So they want to recreate the spheres of influence, something so outdated. So we need to be very firm and determined that we will not allow this. And on the other hand, we need to acknowledge that they have security concerns, and we need to talk to them in order to convince them that they are either not justified or that there will be ways, civilized ways, to try ways how to deal with them, but not through confrontation and not through intimidation with military force.
You and others have suggested, since this is on European soil, that it's about time the EU had its own army. I've been around long enough to know that this comes up every couple of years and doesn't seem to go anywhere. It's a fantasy, isn't it? An EU army?
It's not so much about the European army, because the term maybe is a little bit misleading. For security arrangements, we have, of course, each member state of the EU has its own army. But it's about the more unified EU defense policy, so that we are able, as the European Union, 27 member states, to deal with the military threats and challenges in our neighborhood or anywhere else in the world where the interests of the EU are at stake. So the current crisis is just one reminder of the extent of threats we are dealing with immediately at our doorstep. That suddenly there is a country that tries to violate international law, that tries to violate all the established rules of the post-Cold War arrangements in Europe, and we need to deal with it in a unified way, and if necessary also with the military deterrent. We don't have military deterrent in the European Union at this stage apart from individual armies, but yes, what is happening right now is another impetus for us to speed up the work, which is already ongoing, by the way, on preparing ourselves to deal with the threats and challenges in a more unified way through common European defense.